In the early morning, the little caravan made its way along the little dirt path towards the mountains. It would take them some time to get there, but with time, they did. And with time, they also got over and were on their way down when time finally slowed down a little. "Whew! What happened?" asked the Double. Imswitch wiped the sweat off his forehead. "It must have been a montage," he said. "That's why they were playing the Rocky theme music." "Is that why Giorgio is wearing a bandana and Im is standing in an energy-boosting yoga pose contemplating the sunrise?" "Yep," Imswitch said. "I think so. Now, get your game hat on. I have a strong feeling things are about to get serious." They wound their way down the mountain in switchbacks, down towards that old plantation like mountain goats that were overly careful and a little tipsy. Which is to say very smoothly by human standards. The plantation was very green, many different shades, but very intensely green. As they made their way through the plantation, the green closed above their heads. An oppressive feeling came over them, and they walked quietly along the columns of plants. They started meeting plantation workers, and Im and Giorgio started asking around about their son, Om. The workers pointed them along several fields over, and then got back to work. Im and Giorgio looked at each other as they walked along. Im turned to Imswitch. "That was Ronnie," she said. "I and Giorgio know him very well. He looked straight through us, as if he didn't see us." "Maybe he just didn't recognize you." "Maybe." They both looked worried as they trudged along. The same thing happened a few times more, and the granny put her head to the side, but they closed in on Om, and finally Georgios put a hand on a young man's shoulder, stretched up after orange ripening fruit. "Om," he said. Om turned around. "Father," he said, and then looking around, "Mother." The tone of voice sent shivers down Imswich's spine. It was emotionless, almost. Granny cocked her head to the side. "Granny," said Om. "I think there's something worse here than just a shitty boss," Imswitch whispered to Adubel. "All these people look drugged." Adubel nodded, and her fur was bristling a little. Granny nodded and whispered, and Adubel said, "What?" And she said, "Pausi Vergo." "Oh." Granny stepped forwards to and tilted his head sideways. Then she pounded the ear on the other side. "Granny." "Ow," said But Granny kept pounding. "Granny." "Ow," said But she kept pounding, and then out fell the Paucifergo. It had 9 legs, which made it scuttle away in a very disconcerting way, which Granny soon ended by trampling it with her boot. For it felt as if the world suddenly went from gray to colored. He looked up at his parents. "Dad, why is Mom puking?" "She can't take spiders," Georges explained. All right. Looked up and down the monotonous rows and shook his head. "I can't believe I've been here this long. Let's go. Wow, this place is boring." But nobody moved. "Paucifergo," the grandma muttered. "Paucifergo," a double echoed. The granny rolled back on the balls of her feet. A double rolled forwards on the fronts of her feet. They swayed backwards and forwards, like teeter-totters. "In order to remove Paucifergo, we need to find what's feeding it," a double said. "What's a Paucifergo?" asked Dimswitch. It's a parasite that feeds off emotion, Adubal answered cheerfully. Kind of like an emotion-sucking mosquito that lodges in your ear. But you need something really juicy to get it going. It's like how you get lots of fruit flies when you've left out one banana too long time. That way, the grandma pointed. What? Adubal asked. Banana, the grandma muttered, and started walking along the direction she had pointed, which was towards a large house up on a hill, with pillars and dark-looking ivy crawling up it. That's Fennel's house, said Im. Maybe, said the grandma. They moved upwards towards the house, up the large stone steps, in through the big oak doors, and there was Fennel. He was sitting at his desk, and he looked utterly miserable. The grandma made him some tea. But before he could drink it, she started shaking out the Paucifergo. Adubal had never seen such a large Paucifergo. This Paucifergo had felt so comfortable it had built a whole living room inside Fennel's ears, which had become disproportionately large. When all the Paucifergo were out and swept away, and Fennel had drunk a large cup of tea, and the colors had come back, his eyes filled with tears. As the colors flooded back, big old tears that plopped all over his desk and floor and shirt and cheeks came. I can't make enough money, he blurted out, as if it was a great shame. That's why I pushed people harder and harder. Whole operation might go bottoms up. Nobody have a job. Ipswich cleared his throat. I expected this, he said. Fortunately for you, I am the president of Amatistilla. And he stood up a little bit straighter. He blew a whistle, and in zipped the tufty-haired spreadsheet experts, and they spread spreadsheets everywhere. And you know what? For the first time ever, they met a person who loved them. Fennel's eyes beamed as they used charts and graphs to explain how to maximize happiness and minimize loss. And so, for once, all was well that ended well. The spreadsheet experts set up camp at the plantation. The granny moved into the plantation in order to make tea and keep an eye on things. and Im and Giorgio went back to their little farm. Later, would go on other adventures, but that was in the future. Far in the future, actually. And sometime I should tell you of the adventures Giorgio's had before settling at the little farm by the desert. But that is for another day. With the spreadsheet experts happily diverted, the job as president of Amatistilla was much easier. And Ipswich would keep doing it a whole few years longer, actually. The last he heard of Adubal for quite a long time was mission a giggle accomplished, before she darted, furry and grinning, into the green and out of sight.